debate. If you wish to contribute, I'll call you next. Yeah, Senator Fawcett.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I rise to speak to the Export Finance and Insurance Corporation Amendment Bill. It's wished to highlight the fact that during estimates, when we raised questions about the budget measures and asked the departmental official could they confirm that the $200 million special dividend payment will be made to the government this year, asking them is it usual for EFIC to make such special payments, he indicated no, it was actually a government decision that it would occur. When questioned whether there had been previous dividend payments, he indicated that no, they weren't, except for once back in 2003 when they divested the credit insurance business. When further questioned about how did the government come up with a figure of $200 million, was that something the department had identified or offered up? How much could they afford to pay in light of their ongoing business? The very clear indication, in fact, I'll quote from the department official, the decision was taken in the context of budget deliberations. Now, why was that decision taken? The decision was taken because of the politically inspired drive by this government to achieve a surplus purely for their re-election campaign, regardless of the damage that it was doing to other parts of the economy. And it has had an impact across other areas. This area alone is important. EFIC is an important mechanism to allow our smaller exporters to have the opportunity to gain access to foreign markets, particularly where they're operating in an area that the commercial banks can't or won't support them. So in itself, EFIC is an important body, and taking that funding away potentially limits their ability to support Australian exporters. And if you look at our balance of trade at the moment, that is something we should be encouraging as opposed to restricting the capability of Australian companies to gain access to overseas markets. But the same management approach has had other flow-on effects. I've spoken previously in this place about the impact through the MYEFO, announced earlier this year, about budget measures around health. Now, the government denies consistently that they have reduced health funding, but independent analysis done by the Australian National University actually quite clearly identifies the reduction in funding that took place in the MYEFO to health budgets. We've seen in the media how Victoria has challenged that and claimed some of those funds back, but in South Australia we're still seeing impacts of that, some $31 million taken away from the South Australian health budget, which means that the South Australian government then has to make choices about what they can continue to fund. Just this week we have seen that things like audits of deaths in surgery, which have been an integral part of maintaining the quality of our healthcare system, understanding what went wrong, if indeed something went wrong, how we can address that, how we can improve the system. That closed-loop auditing process has been an important part of our medical standards. Well, South Australia is now the only state in Australia that has chosen to not fund that process. Why? Because they don't have enough money. Why don't they have enough money? Despite the protestations of the government, they don't have enough money because $31 million was taken away from them as part of the government's myopic drive towards achieving a budget surplus, which they have now finally admitted that they cannot achieve. So, Mr Deputy President, we look at the management of different portfolios by this government. EFIC is just one good example that became very clear during estimates that it was a very deliberate extraction of funds by the government towards their budget surplus. But that same approach has been hurting different areas of the economy, from health through to defence industry, and in this case hurting the exporters. And if there is one message that Australians continue to get, is that if we want to have our economy grow, we need to be moving into the global market and exporting, and yet measures like this harm the chances of our smaller companies to gain that initial foothold in export markets.
Thank you, Senator.